Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up
All that jam.
All That Jam, Quick Hit. Joe Winograd on Working with Dogs in a Pile and Through Disco Biscuits.
That's so awesome. I was going to ask you, what your aesthetic is. You just described it, I think, really, really well. And I think you do have an imprint. When you see posters kind of all together, I mean, there definitely is a commonality, and you said texture, and I definitely understand what you mean, especially in some of the animations
Mm-hmm.
that you've done. Disco Biscuits, I
Yep.
saw, maybe Dogs in a
Yep.
Pile.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really seen anything like that
Mm-hmm.
before. Does that come out of your schooling? I know you went to RISD,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm from the Northeast too, so
Gotcha.
love what they do, and their programs are so awesome. Um, yeah, like how does that factor in? Is that for you kind of like a bonus you get to do, or like do you really see yourself as kind of equal parts?
Yeah. So I think a lot of that, you really have to sort of scale back the full story and think about where I was coming from when I was, an angsty teenager trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. And like, thinking about just through schooling and, weird jobs in my 20s and things like that of like where it all headed. So I definitely remember, being in middle school and high school and thinking in my head, I want to be a poster artist. I want to be someone that makes prints for bands. I want to be someone that is, working in printmaking. There's a rich history in that, but also be someone that works with bands. Like I was heavily inspired by, the artists of Fish and the Grateful Dead and, the psychedelic posters of the 60s, so much of that, screen printing and all that. But there's also a deep art history influence and inspiration with all that too. So that's why, like I got like a BFA in printmaking from Washington St. Louis. And then I ended up working in, more like blue chip high end art galleries in New York City for the first couple of years out of undergrad. Because I, at the time, was thinking like, I'm very much influenced by printmaking and all that, but I saw myself more as wanting to be a gallery artist, someone who makes art for museums and, the white cube. Like it goes on a white wall. It's got a nice little frame around it. It's the thing that, bougie people in suits and drinking wine, like this is what they sort of have like you know, a soft, a soft experience with. And after a couple of years working in that, I ended up just shifting into doing a lot of digital art on my own because like I was living either like on my brother's couch for a while, or I was in small apartments and didn't have like a big art studio to do a lot of big messy physical work. Having a printing press on hand is very difficult for a variety of reasons. So I got into doing animations and just like cool designs on Photoshop and Illustrator just out of this inherent need to make things and to just be creative, even if I was just sitting at a kitchen table or sitting on the couch and just making something. And that was something that, just even out of the gate, finding a lot of joy and passion out of just making little animations or graphics or, GIF designs for Tumblr and things like that. And that led to me going to RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, for an MFA in digital media. Because at the time I was thinking more about like ways that technology helps shape what I do and thinking about like where would be the future for like how people are consuming media, how people are creating media, where art fits into all of that, and how, influences of the kind of art that I like and enjoy making and where I get to do that best. So I came out of that program at RISD, with a lot more motion graphics and animation, but also just, a lot more art installations and sculpture and performance and things like that. So I saw opportunities at the time. This would have been, 2018, 2019. And I was seeing like, I don't want to really be making my work for art galleries anymore. I want to get back into working with music and festivals and just like doing production for that. So that's when I started doing a lot of like video projections and light shows and like multimedia displays for concerts and music festivals and events. And that's when I got really close with like the folks at Elements Music Festival or some other big electronic festivals around the New York, Philadelphia areas, where we'd be making these, big elaborate art sculptures in the woods and then have video projections hit them and make these like super psychedelic, super immersive experiences for people. And that was a very exciting, interesting way to sort of bring all of these different elements of everything that I do and think about into like one cohesive, moment in time for a fan or an audience member, or, just for somebody else to experience. And then the pandemic happened, and like the idea of making in-person artwork for festivals and all that stopped immediately. And I saw it as an opportunity to reflect and think about like, what is another outlet or another way for me to stay involved and to get into like the people I want to work with, the bands I want to work with, and still have some sort of, you know, uh, outlet for all the creativity that I have. And that's when just no, I didn't even try intentionally, but just started getting asked to do poster art and to do designs for bands. And it was something that like I was sort of always doing on the side, thinking like, oh, like this is something to do from time to time. But deep down, I want to be an animator, or deep down, I want to be doing some bigger picture stuff. Um, and it was so fun to look back how over the last 4 or 5 years, like so much of what I've done has come from just that little spontaneous moment of like, hey, can you do a poster for this band we're playing down the street from you in Providence? And all this, and just like so many great opportunities to work with people over the years has come from that, and just like so much of just like enthusiasm and excitement to just like be involved and to essentially visually jam with bands and all of that. And this past year is when it really came full circle, and I pitched the opportunity actually with Dogs in a Pile of, hey, I do posters, but I could also do animations too, if that's something of interest to you. And they were like, hey, that's cool, let's run with it. And the first thing I made for them was a poster design for a series of dates in May 2023 of a cool cartoonish dog riding a psychedelic bicycle, kind of looked like Pee Wee Herman's bike, shiny red bike. And I animated it and turned it into this cool little graphic of the dog riding the bicycle, the legs kicking, the wheels spinning, and all that. And it was like a eureka moment where it was like, holy smokes, we've just figured out something that could really work for the scene and the bands we're working with, and ways to just really grow what we're doing. Because because making it animated and making motion graphics, it hits all these buttons for like the social media algorithms. Fans respond to it differently. It's something that just creates a lot more excitement and enthusiasm for the shows and for like what people are doing. And it was so cool to see that happen. And all of a sudden, all of these opportunities to just work with other artists and bands came up. Like it was something where I didn't really plan it or seek it out or really think about it that hard. But this year, through offering animated posters, all of a sudden I'm being invited to the table to work with bands that I grew up listening to, or artists that inspire me daily. Like I get to listen to their music, I get to go to their shows. I get such a great rush. The idea that they see my work and they say, hey, we would love for you to like help us do what we do. And it is such a cool, unique opportunity to be somebody that's pushing that at this time, and finding unique ways to build better value and to help promote artists that are in a very difficult industry and a scene to compete with everybody and to compete with the algorithms and just get your stuff out there.
So who would be some of those bands that you kind of mentioned a second ago that you're getting opportunities from bands that you've loved for so long? Can you talk about maybe a few of those and what it meant? Yeah.
Absolutely. So a couple of the really big ones that happened this year. So it started with Dogs in a Pile, and they work with 1111 Group out in Denver for management, and working with them opened the door for me to get a project with the Disco Biscuits and to design animated artwork to announce and promote their New Year's Eve runs of shows. And when that happened, it was just a rush for me, because I was thinking like I became a massive fan of the Disco Biscuits listening to their New Year's Eve shows. Holy smokes, 2007, 2008. So to like suddenly be like the person that gets involved in promoting that is amazing. The graphics also opened it up for me to do work for Mo. And we designed some really cool artwork for them to promote shows coming up in February in Beverly, Massachusetts at the Cabot. And one of the really cool things about that is Not only was that graphic or the animation and everything created for, promo on social media and the website and things like that, but we also developed the same graphics into what's going to be printed on shirts and what's going to be physical merchandise at the show. So it was cool to see this next push of not only are you making a design and finding ways to animate it and give it life through motion, but how are we also going to make it something that's printable and something that is tangible in that way? And then through my work with Color Red, which was another opportunity that came up, potentially through my animated work and the more recent graphics, getting to work closely with Eddie on his own personal projects. I got to do the artwork for the new Master Sounds announcing their 25th anniversary tour this year, which an incredible honor to be asked of that. And it's just so cool to think about. Like, I grew up listening to this band as a kid. Like, my brother turned me on to them when I was a teenager, and to be offered like, hey, we're doing this really big, ambitious tour this year. We're, doing some really big things. It's also our 25th year. We would love to have you design the branding and the visual identity for how that is. And I had this really happy accident happen where I went to a concert at the Sinclair in Boston a week or two ago. And sure enough, the poster that I designed for them was front and center in their lobby, that they're playing there in April. And it was like this, and it made me realize, like, this is my art gallery. This is what I originally thought I was wanting in my like white cube or the gallery thing years and years ago. But to see my work printed up on the marquee or, in the lobby of a concert hall that I love going to, that's where I want my art to be seen. That's where I want people to react and respond to it. That's where I think I shine best.
I saw that poster. I think actually that one for the Master Sounds was really eye-catching because it was a totally different vibe for them. And I think it was so perfect because, not only 25th anniversary, but they haven't, been able to tour here for years. That last tour was right before COVID, which was really cool, kind of ended here in Colorado. Okay, so thinking about all of that, and I appreciate you sharing everything, I'm curious to know, this is more of like maybe a personal thing, but do you have like an ideal partner in this work? Maybe not a name, but just characteristics of someone that would really make it a really good working relationship for you.
You mean as far as like a client or like a band that I work with? Okay. I would say my current relationship with the band Dogs in a Pile emulates in a lot of ways what I think is an ideal relationship. I had started working with them, I guess, about 2 years ago at this point, where we talked about, hey, we have a couple artists we work with to do our various posters and our advertising materials and our promotions and things like that. Would you want to be one of them to work with us? And for a variety of reasons, like after doing 4 or 5 poster designs for them, it became this relationship where like, hey, you have a pretty distinct style or an aesthetic that fits really well with our band. We think it would be really great if you helped us sort of be the like all-encompassing designer for our big digital announcements for touring. Like when we first announce our tour dates, when we, roll out big shows and big announcements, like that could be something you help us with, to have this very cohesive imagery that very much fits with the band and like what kind of artwork we've been putting out, but also, gives me a lot of creative freedom and a chance to like explore and pursue some pretty outlandish, kooky ideas visually. Hence like a dog riding a bicycle, or I think we had, dogs, a giant submarine shaped like a dog with the band members in it at one point. The animated graphics we did for their winter tour recently was these, caricature cartoon portraits of the band members that animate and morph into dogs. Like that was such a cool project to pitch to them, and they were all for it. And their management is just such great people to work with. And not only with all of that, but I just absolutely love the music. And, I will sit there, like I'll listen to their shows. I, really like geek out, like talking about it. It's almost the same as I was like when I was, a teen, being like, oh, like, did you catch the shows, the songs that Fish played last night? Or like, did you see like this set list or things like that? Like to suddenly have like this band that I'm working with pretty closely to like also geek out at that level is very fun and very entertaining. And I'm sure very much helps me in the design process to like make things that are so visually on point for what they're doing, and is like really boosting their music in that way. I think by being a fan, it helps me be a better designer for them in that way. And at the end of the day as well, they're also incredibly organized and incredibly thoughtful for their timelines, and their, just paying invoices, and just like being very being very respectful of the time and energy everybody on the team puts in to making it happen for them. So that's always something I very much appreciate as well.
I'm going to take it in a totally different direction. So I want to manifest some
Totally.
things. Who would you love to work with? Like, is there anyone out there that you're like, oh man, I would love to do some art for band, artists, anything?
It's funny. The last time this question came up in my head, I said to myself, I would love to work with bands represented by red light management. Just thinking, like, for me, like, as great as it is to work one-on-one with bands, it is tremendously more structured or organized to try to work with like a large label or a management agency of, hey, we handle a lot of bands. We are much more organized and structured for how we collaborate and work with designers. So in my head at the time, a few months ago, that's when I said like, oh, red light management would be great. And truly that day, I got reached out by Moe's management, who is Red Light. So I'm wondering who I can manifest to make this happen. So certainly, it would be phenomenal and excellent to work with, the bands that I've held close to my heart over the years, whether it is working, with the members of the Grateful Dead that are still alive, or working with Fish. I think it would be really great to, have my work as part of like the branding or the designs for major festivals, whether it's like Bonnaroo or whether it's, Electric Forest or something like that. I would love to be involved in working, doing album packaging or production for some of these bands if they're putting out new albums or something that's a bit grander than just a singular event. But, as time has gone on, as phenomenally joyful and exciting it is to work with these big, massive bands, I think I'm more excited by the opportunity to work with someone very closely to help develop their identity and their vision from the beginning. I think it would be so much more interesting for me to work with a band. We're 20 years old. We are trying to figure out where we're going. Let's work on something to be the band, to be this massive success in 20 years. And to sort of see that vision and to see that motivation and excitement, and to figure out how can I best help make that happen, or at least set them up on the right path for that.
If you are enjoying All That Jam, please like and subscribe to our social media channels at All That Jam Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or visit our website, allthatjampod.com. Make sure to sign up for our email list and tune in every week for new episodes.
Also, look for full interviews on our YouTube channel. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long.